and that we write together in shared spaces. And I wanted you all to talk a little bit about what it's like to write together, not collaboratively, but actually, like close to one another, and like what the value of that is.
It's true. We write together almost every day. Sarah is less often physically with us because she lives in Ireland, but often she's with us. Holly and Kelly and I are literally together. And I think it's an amazing kind of experience to have that kind of communal writing feeling. We all know what each other is working on. If one of us is stuck on something, we can stop and ask for help. We know that if we give help, we're going to get help back. We can also, just stop and kind of generally talk about writing, anything that we want to, talk about characterization or pacing, that kind of thing. And I think, I don't know, I mean, I also think that when you are a writer, it's a very kind of lonely job, and you work alone. And a lot of us can slip into this sort of like writing alone all day in our pajamas and, in front of the TV, getting weirder. And I think, keeping a social group that's sort of focused on writing keeps us from getting too much inside our own heads. We also go on writing retreats. I mean, we'll travel. So when we're at home, we'll go over to each other's houses and write, but we'll often take like a month and go away somewhere and just write for that period of time. And I feel like those periods of time are when we do some really great, like, creative and introspective work. So I don't know. Do you agree, Sarah Brennan?
Why, yes, Cassandra Clare. It's true that you get super weird writing on your own. For instance, when I was living in London, I was on deadline. I didn't see another human being for 2 weeks, and finally the postman called because he had a parcel. And I made him come into my house, and I asked him if he would do up the back of my dress. And I think he thought it was a passport, but it truly wasn't. I'd been trying to do up the back of that dress for several, not days. Also, have you guys heard of NaNoWriMo?
Yes.
National Writing Month. That is what writing retreats are like to me, because often we're all together on deadline and we're like, I'm gonna miss it. It's gonna hit me in the back of the head like an axe. And I fondly remember being in Mexico once, and Cassie was writing City of Lost Souls, and she was on super deadline. I am very competitive. I worked out with my mother once how to cheat up past the parcel, asking me how in the signing line. And so I just saw her like being like, and I was like, yeah.
William Tell Overture was playing.
Exactly like that. Occasionally she shot small boys. I mean apples, not small boys. Anyway, so I was like, already past two. And then I finished the book, and I was like, woo, I finished it, yes, you can call me. And she was like, oh, that's so great. What's your deadline? I was like, oh, I don't have a deadline. And then she chased me around and ran the fountain. So that's very inspirational to write with other authors.
I will agree with everything they said, except I will add that how many people here write? Yeah. So I really hate writing. I hate it with all of my heart. Writing makes me miserable, and I would rather do almost anything. Dishes, pretty much anything. A lot of stuff.
This is like the Martin Luther King, I don't have dreams.
But what I will say is, being in the company of other people who, even if they are also miserable while they're working, which they sometimes are, sometimes they're not, it makes me happy to be with other people who are doing the same thing that I'm doing, even if I hate the thing that I'm doing. And in fact, there's also part of the reason why I write, despite hating it, is I like listening to people talk about books, and also I like listening to people talk about their own writing. And so there is a lot of conversation, as they were saying, about stuff and about things that they're reading. And then there's also just a lot of shop talk about how books work in general or how publishing works in general. And, even if I hate writing, I really like that. Kind of funny.
So, all three of you have told stories and actually tell a lot of stories that are magical and set in contemporary settings. And I was curious what the pleasure of that do you feel is, both for the writer and the reader?
I have to go first again.
Kelly, I'll go first. Yes, we all write fantasy with sort of it's set, not always, but often are writing stories that have magic in them that are taking place right now. And I think about it the same way that I think about horror and ghost stories a lot. And the great thing about ghost stories or any kind of horror is that when there's an advance or some kind of new technology, it sort of gives you more opportunities for how to integrate that technology into a ghost story. So when we got a Prius a couple of years ago, the fact that there was a mirror, the camera that shows you what you're backing up towards, the moment that I saw that, I thought, this is great. At some point I'll look in the background and something terrible is going to happen. And if you guys watch movies, you'll notice in a horror movie that they always integrate technology, either the internet or phones, all of that. And I think it's the same with fantasy in general, that one, the reader is going to be able to participate more with you because the story is set in a place that they live too, and two, that the technology and all the stuff that is particular to a time and place, the place that we are now, also kind of makes the magic more magical. And then again, it also changes your experience when you're out in the world, when you stop reading, is because the story or the book was set in a contemporary setting. When you step outside, you feel as if maybe that magic has sort of charged the atmosphere of the place where you are and where you live.
Maybe the magic out with the milk bottles. I think fantasy is also a way of talking about real life in like letters of scarlet and gold. So you're like, here's an insight I had about life, but also dragons. Which is enjoyable. Like you're like, how would a harpy talk about the internet? What would they say about it? Also, it means that you can transmute your life experiences without having to confess, say, what a dumbass you are. As for instance, once I went into my house, and it was very cold because I can't work heating, and I couldn't set a fire because I can't work matches. So I decided to set a fire by putting a bit of newspaper in the toaster. Not recommended. And then it did go on fire, so I was partially successful. And I sort of carried my fire across to the hearth, but it was sort of a bit more on fire than I anticipated, so I sort of created a ring of fire for myself, which I then did a dance in. Like, oh God, I'm gonna die. And so later I was like, hey, you know what's a cool thing to do? Dance in a ring of fire, but like on purpose, because you're a cool demon summoner and not, So yes, talking about real life in a cool way, unlike the uncool things that sometimes people do, but not me.
I think creating contemporary fantasy in our world makes us feel closer to the magic and makes the magic feel closer to us and more immediate. And one of the things that I really enjoy is going to places that exist in our physical world and exploring them and kind of thinking about what aspects of them might be made magical. For instance, long ago, I made Holly come with me to Roosevelt Island when I was living in New York because there is an abandoned old hospital at the south end of the island, and I thought it would be fun to set something there. So we got out of our car and we walked down there, and there were some locked gates, but we felt like those weren't really meant, mean the locking. It wasn't a mixed message, and we wanted to get closer. I wanted to get closer, so we started to climb over the gates. The police came. And they were like, what are you doing? And I was like, we are climbing over these gates to get closer to this ruined hospital. And they were like, why would you do that? And I was like, I'm writing a book. This is my research. And they were like, oh, you're writing a book? Okay, what's it about? And I was like, demons. That did not go well.
No one ever believes you're writing a book.
them. Two general questions, and now I'm going to ask each one of them a specific question. But after that, we're going to open it up to questions. So this is your notice to begin thinking of things you might like to know.
A note before you start that, can you repeat questions when people in the audience ask so upstairs can hear?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. So, Sarah. Follows me first. So I would love. Sorry. I would love for you to talk a little bit about the story of In Other Lands' road to publication and creation, as it's a pretty interesting one. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm thrilled you asked me that question, Molly Black.
You look thrilled.
Yeah, I know why you called your book The Cruel Prince.
Shameless role.
So once some very kind publishers asked me to write a short story for an anthology, and I did, and then they said, this isn't short. What's wrong with you? Why is it so long? Cut it in half.
And who were those? Who were those?
Perhaps Miss Kelly Lee. Perhaps her husband, Mr. Gavin Grant, who is Scottish, and when you've been told off by Scottish men for waxing on too long, you'll feel truly told off. So I nobly cut it in half, and I was like, well, what a lovely story about harpies and mermaids and so forth. Some boy wandering through being like, y'all, what about iPods though? And I was like, well, I have more to say. Events by a long way. So I was like, I'll just write a little pre-short story in my blog, and it will be promotional. Yes, I'm a marketing genius. Good idea, self. So I wrote a little story, and I put it on my blog, and then it was, it turns out you can only write posts that are so long before they cut you off. Did you guys know that? I think it's impressive, personally. I felt oppressed. Anyway, so after the internet oppressed me, then I was sitting at a writing retreat in Cornwall, in fact, and Miss Holly Black, the cruel princess, was like, hey, why are you writing a book on your blog? And I was like, well, that's hurtful.
Why do I keep asking questions?
She always does it. Were you even invited? Anyway, so she was like, well, it's not a short story because it's 100,000 words long. And I was like, how would you know something like that? She's like, well, I copy and paste it and I put in a Word document. I was like, no, that's a mistake. I've never done that. You write it in the blog post. That's what you do. And then she was like, yeah, so it's a book. What are you going to do? And I was like, why are you even reading it? She's like, because it's on the internet. I was like, everybody's reading it? They told me to come talk to you about it. Oh, no. And then everybody made fun of me that night. So I wrote the hero getting a really bad boyfriend called Jace. Apologies, Jace. I know Jace is a much better boyfriend. But everybody was very hurtful. Anyway, so
you made it longer?
Slightly longer, yes. Anyway, I eventually finished it after only 1 or 7 parts more. And then Kelly Link and Gavin Grant contacted me and were like, we'd like to publish it. And I was like, well, that's a mistake. And then Holly called me and told me that I need to stop saying no for their own good because I was being Spider-Man to his girlfriend. And so they published this book. And it has extra content that I didn't write on the internet, which wasn't requested. I just do that. And I have no regrets, but everyone else made some mistakes and hurtful comments.
I just want to say that Gavin and I, talking about this, we loved it, but we also thought, never before in the history of publishing has somebody written a promotional novel or a short story. This is going to be publishing history.
I write long books, but it is kind of like making a promotional movie to advertise a trailer.
On your blog I read after the bridge, it had parts.
I don't know what you mean.
Kelly. So one of my favorite favorite stories and get in trouble is the summer people because of many things, but also fairies, which I love. So I was curious if you could talk a little bit about your fairies in that story and what attracted you to your particular depiction of them.
Sure. I actually wrote that story in Alston while we were living in an apartment on Camelot Court. So this story was for an anthology of steampunk stories, and we got many interesting versions of steampunk stories, and I was interested in the idea of fairies interacting with steampunk because I do think of fairies as people who make things, but not metal things. Not you know that there would be sort of a difference to it. And then I spent a lot of time thinking about their sort of documentaries and sort of writing about the fact that there are a lot of commonalities between stories about people who went into fairy hills and alien abduction stories. That at a certain point, stories about people being taken by fairies began to sort of die out. Those stories died out, but alien abduction stories have a lot of similarities to them, and that's not a that's people have written stories